Hey, Chi Alpha family, I'm Mario Solari with the Southeast Area Director, and coming up next is none other than Ronnie Hoover. Now, Ronnie is new to our region, but he is the new District Director for the great state of Kentucky. Now, I've known Ronnie since the beginning of my time back in 1993. He predates me. But let me just tell you, he's an evangelist, loves God, loves Jesus, loves campus ministry, and is doing a phenomenal job at the University of Arkansas. And so I pray that you'll listen to him. He's going to be talking to us, the relationship with Chi Alpha staff and the local church. I think it's a fantastic subject matter. Please pay attention, take notes. I'm praying that God will minister to us so he can minister through us as we listen and pay attention. We do have a code word. It's a TV show, so please listen intently. And if you get them all right, we'll put your name in a hat. We'll draw a name out of the hat, and hopefully you'll win 4-night stay at a cabin in Wears Valley, Tennessee. God bless you. We'll see you tonight.
Hello, guys. I'd just like to thank you for welcoming me into the area. I'd like to talk about something very dear to my heart. I call it the strategic alliance between Chi Alpha and our local churches. We are not an isolated independent ministry out here, but rather we are a part of a family. And that family is called the Assemblies of God. To my students, I don't call them a denomination, I call them a network. And I tell them that we are a part of the fastest growing evangelical network in the world. Its name is the Assemblies of God. And so that's kind of the heart of where I'm at. So I just want to kind of jump into this. I believe, and there's the statement, it is the sole responsibility of the campus pastor to gain and maintain a healthy relationship between Chi Alpha and the local churches and pastors, especially those in our network, the Assemblies of God. I think that it comes from an attitude about church in general that kind of arises inside of me, and also an attitude toward our network. It's amazing. When Jesus said, I will build my church, so long as what I'm doing in Chi Alpha is building the church, and I'm talking about the traditional church and the advanced churches, when I'm a part of that, God's going to build Chi Alpha. And so also about the job of a pastor. I don't speak ill about churches. I don't say, well, the church they do, and then Chi Alpha is so much better. No, we don't speak that kind of language because we have an attitude of honor and of respect for churches and for the job and the responsibilities that pastors have. Let's face it, we don't have the same kinds of responsibilities and jobs that a pastor does. And so I think we have to place honor where honor and respect is due and actually biblically commanded, and we need to express that in our attitude toward church and pastors. I think our question needs to be, how can Chi Alpha serve the local church? One of the things we can do is we can, after we've had our startup activities and we've got hundreds of names on our database, we can share the student's name and email address with the churches so they can send an email, invite them to their churches. We can offer to put up posters of the local church events that they think that a student might be interested in. Now, granted, things they think students may be interested in is very different than what we think they may be interested in, but you will never know. You'll be surprised what students go to and go, wow, that was awesome. And I'm like, well, what was it? It was a tent camp meeting. And I'm like, what? The other things we got to be aware of any annual big events participated in by our network churches, by our Assembly of God churches, like in the River Valley here in Arkansas. They have a camp meeting where all of the churches, all of the pastors within that whole section come together, and there's a bunch of them, and there's like 1,500 people that come to this thing every night. And so that's a night, if you're in that city and you're doing Chi Alpha, you need to count on, that week, we're going to take our entire Chi Alpha service to the camp meeting and be a part of that. What can we do to serve the local churches? We can be babysitters for their revivals or their special meetings. We can become church university bus drivers. Arum Han in our group was taking 3 trips from campus to church to try to get all his friends he was bringing to church. When the pastor caught him doing that and said, dude, here's a key to our van, and he became the bus driver and began bringing students to church. How do we demonstrate to the pastors that we are supporters of the local church? I think one of the first things that we need to do is that we need to make a decision that no student can be in leadership in Chi Alpha unless they are a faithful attender of an area local church. And we got to know which church. So it's none of this church hopping mess, that they are attending one church. And when they decide which church they're going to go to as a freshman, that's a 4-year decision. There are very few reasons why anybody should change a church. And just because, I got a cute girl over there, no way. You are locked into your church. And just because there's a church pastor change, it doesn't matter. There's very few biblical reasons why somebody ought to change churches. And I think that we have to demonstrate to them we even have a background check we check our student leaders from their pastor, and so if they've just received Christ and they're faithfully going to a church, we want to know from that pastor, are they faithful? Are they doing something? I think that we involve local pastors in our student leadership affirmation process. In other words, I invite them when we're determining, is this student fit to lead? We bring them to an interview, the way Harvey Herman describes in his book of Discipleship by Design. We have an exit interview after our leadership class, and the pastors are there and they bring unbelievable insight to us. Sometimes we love the students so much that we kind of overlook some of the stuff that are blatantly obvious, and those pastors speak affirmation. They speak prophetic words into the lives of our students that years later, I hear students say, hey, remember during my interview, Pastor so-and-so said da-da-da-da. And I don't remember that because I've been set through so many interviews, but the student never forgets that affirmation that the pastor spoke over their lives. Now, here's something a little controversial, but we don't receive tithe from our students. I never want to create a time in the span of their life, in that little 4 years they're in college, I never want to create a time when it is acceptable not to give your tithe to the area local church. If we create that time now, maybe 10 years down the road, they don't like what the pastor's doing or the preacher at their church is doing. They'll say to themselves, well, I remember when I was in Chi Alpha, it was acceptable not to pay my tithe to the church. I'm not going to be privy to that. God is my provider. He's going to take care of us, and He's going to provide for this. I don't have to take tithe away from the local churches. And my pastors appreciate the fact, knowing that's one of the things I'm doing. And it's my job in discipleship to disciple my students to tithe to their local churches. And the other thing is that we got to be faithful to church ourselves. And when you aren't going to be there because you're at a missions convention or you're off preaching somewhere, you send an email to your pastor, hey, Pastor, I'm not going to be there this week, got it tonight, so I'm praying for the service, etc. Pastors appreciate that self-accountability that you've placed over yourself. You would expect the same kind of thing of your leaders if they weren't going to be at your main meeting. And so we are holding ourselves accountable to be faithful to the church. The other thing is we need to be ministers of supportive helps. We need to be a supportive minister. If the pastor's trying to do something, even if you think it's dumb, find a way you can make it better. Find a way you can help it. Find a way. We did a old camp meeting thing at our church one time, and we were bringing in these preachers that were spitting and screaming and all that kind of a preaching. And I just announced it as a cultural experience. Guys, listen, you will go there, you'll see things you've never seen in church before. My students ate it up. They loved it because we were finding a way to get them. Pastor loved us because we were helping what they were doing there. The other thing is you got to find a way to be involved in your church. I tell our students on Sunday, find a way to be involved in church. Not just, you can have secondary placements, a way to do that. The other thing, we have to be true worshipers, it should be that when you and your staff and your students show up to a local church, that the level of praise and worship jumps just because y'all are there. You're the people. We are the people. The praise team loves having present because we are worshipers of Jesus. The other thing is we got to ask permission from the senior pastor if it's okay if we work the altars in their church. Don't just assume it's okay to go forward and pray for people. Once you've got permission from the pastor, you know what? pastors appreciate when you don't make that kind of an assumption and you go to your pastor and say, Pastor, just wanted to see if it's okay with you when you're calling people down for prayer, and if I came and prayed for some of the people that the Lord leads me to pray for. They will love, and I've had several pastors through my years of the church that I attend. I've been at the same church for 31 years, and each pastor I had the same conversation. Is it okay if I do that? I don't assume it's okay with that pastor that a visiting minister like myself, it's that I sing in the choir. So I asked my new pastor that when he came in a couple of years ago, is it okay if I sing in the choir? Is it okay to work the altar? Is it okay if I be a small group leader in our church? And he was like, well, I don't know what happened to you, but yeah, we want all of that. You know, we got to go to fellowship meetings, guys. I know that sometimes in places they're not very good, but it's part of being in this cooperative fellowship. Now, another thing that I want to point out that I'm making very clear to our churches is that what we call the principle of the significance of Sunday. Think about it. And I tell the pastors this. Think about it. Most students don't think about God at all. Okay, that's what the truth is. But if by chance a student on campus was going to think about God, what day of the week would they begin thinking about that? What day would that happen? That's right, Sunday. Yet, on Sunday, Chi Alpha does nothing to reach out to students on this most significant day. Why? Why do we not do that? Because it is our job to culturize students to church. So let's be honest. I tell the pastor, let's be honest, Pastor. Church is a unique culture, and a kid that's come from nothing, coming to a church, they're like, whoa, what is all of this? Greeters at the door, calling everybody brother. I mean, this is kind of strange. Even what we do during the service, the manners of preaching, teaching are just really different, and it's our job to culturize the students to church. Why? Because when they graduate and their only involvement is within Chi Alpha, and they get a job somewhere in Bug-Tussleville, is there going to be anything that looks like Chi Alpha in that city or that town? No, but what will be in that town? That's right, a church. And it's our job to culturize the students into the church culture. And when we do that, you know, we get the kind of results that's happened when I did a survey of my alums, those that have been involved with us, actively involved with us. I asked them, you know, tell me about your church home. 95% were not only attending church faithfully, but were actively involved in their local church, or they were in full-time vocational ministry. We tell the churches how significant Sunday is because we're asking for cooperation from them. Basically, what we're telling them is that I'm on staff with you, you know, and I say this to all of my churches in my area, Assembly of God churches. I'm your staff. I'm your university campus pastor. I'm your college pastor. Chi Alpha is your church's collegiate ministry. And we're asking if you would release your students to be involved on their mission field, which is the university, through Chi Alpha. And so we explain what we call primary placement. Acts 1:8 clearly states that it happens first in Jerusalem, and then in Judea, etc., the rest of the world. But where does it happen first? In Jerusalem. Where is our students' Jerusalem? Luke 24:46 through 48 makes the same point. First in Jerusalem. So we believe in the primary placement. In other words, our students' primary placement is the university, and they need to be released from the pastor and the youth pastor and all the other pastors to do the ministry in their primary placement. I tell them it's kind of like this. And here in Springdale, Arkansas, we're the chicken capital of the world. Tyson Corporation, George's Chicken. Their motto is we feed the world. And so say you got a guy working at Tyson Chicken, and every Monday at noon, he runs downstairs, jumps in his car, drives across town to George's Chicken, a totally different company, and he hosts a Bible study there. And then he jumps in his car, he rushes back, and he gets to his desk just in time to start working again, not even having time to eat. Never once reaching out to Tyson, the place where he actually works. Do you see the problem with this? That's the same thing that's happening when a church or anybody else tries to get a university student to stop doing their primary placement ministry and come over and be a youth sponsor or be a children's sponsor on a midweek thing. You know, we can do things on Sunday because we'll be there all day Sunday. Anything on Sunday we could commit to, but they're not going to be able to be at our main meeting on Tuesday night and then come to church on Wednesday night and then host their small group on Thursday night, and then maybe there's a leadership meeting on Monday. Now, when are they going to study? Pastor, you have to understand these students have limited time and they need to be released to their primary placement. Just like that man that worked at Tyson should be doing his ministry in Tyson, so the university students should be doing their primary placement in the university. And Acts 1:8, Luke 24:46 through 48 bears that out. You know, I'm asking your church if you would embrace our Wednesday night Chi Alpha service as your church's midweek service for college students. And so I know it's tough, but that's kind of what I'm asking. And so I'll simply ask the pastors, does this sound like something you'd like to be a part of? And I just close my mouth and I'll wait for them to respond, just like you do when you're support raising. Okay, guys, well, thank you very much for hearing me out. I believe that when we develop that kind of relationship with our area local churches, there are so many residual benefits that we get from this. It is unbelievable. And it all starts with the first thing that I was talking about today, and that is it's your attitude toward the local church and toward the pastors and what they do. And I want to repeat this one thing. I believe it is the sole responsibility of the campus pastor to gain and maintain a healthy relationship between Chi Alpha and the local churches and pastors, especially our Assembly of God churches. All right, God bless you guys. Thanks for hearing me out.